Today I have a story for you. A story of one of New York City's prestigious families whose prestige eroded over the years and eventually ended in tragedy and infamy, surrounded by filth and piles of garbage. Take a seat, and I'll tell you the tale of the Collier brothers. Today's episode focuses on a mental disorder. Much like any mental disorder, hoarding carries a certain stigma with it that can make life more difficult for those who suffer from it. We're not here to lay judgment on anyone. We're just looking to explore a topic from an unbiased position. If you have any concerns about your mental health, please speak to a psychiatrist so that you can determine what kind of support you need. And with that out of the way, let's get into it.
And what's this?
This is where I keep my research notes from all of my previous episodes.
You keep physical copies of them?
Is that odd?
Yes.
Huh. You sure?
Certain. It's 2021. What's this one?
Oh, that? These are rabbit holes that proved a bit too deep while I was doing my research. Anything catch your eye?
Yeah, why is this one so thick?
Oh, that's a story that I took out of that video I made about hoarders. At the time, I thought it was too much to include. But if you're curious, I can fill you in. Our story starts in New York City, 1881. On November 6th, a boy named Homer was born into the respectable Collier family to gynecologist Dr. Herman Collier and opera singer Susie Gage Frost Collier. While not the first child the Colliers had, Homer's older sister Susan had tragically died 4 months after her birth the year before. Susie and Herman were first cousins and also descendants of Robert Livingston, an American lawyer and founding father of the United States. Herman Collier was known to be an eccentric but wealthy individual. He worked at the city hospital on Roosevelt Island and was known to canoe to and from work down the East River, carrying his boat through the streets to and from the river. The Colliers would have another child several years after Homer. Langley Collier was born October 3rd, 1885. At the time, the family was living in a tenement while their father interned. The future of the brothers seemed bright at this time, with Homer being accepted into the College of the City of New York at the age of 14 as a sub-freshman. 6 years later, he would receive his bachelor's. In 1909, the family moved from their tenement into a New York brownstone in a wealthy district, Harlem. Homer went on to receive a degree in Admiralty Law from Columbia University and was a member of the once prestigious Phi Beta Kappa fraternity while studying. Some sources claim that Langley also studied at Columbia, though for engineering and chemistry. However, Frederick Knudsen of Down the Rabbit Hole stated that Columbia has no records of him attending the school. Unclear academic record aside, Langley did also pursue a career as a concert pianist with some matter of success, even playing at the famous Carnegie Hall. However, over time, Langley eventually ceased playing the piano and turned his career to selling them instead. In 1919, the brothers' parents separated. Herman Collier moved out into a house of his own, while Susie remained in the brownstone, and the brothers stayed there with her. Only 4 years later, in 1923, their father passed away and left the boys all of his possessions, including various medical items and a full Ford Model T car. In an early sign of what was to come, Homer and Langley moved these items to the brownstone. They even took apart the car to fit it inside. Homer and Langley lost their mother in 1929, left to live in the brownstone alone from then on. Their lives continued as normal for the next 4 years, with both brothers leaving the house and socializing with others, attending their jobs. Homer continued to work as a lawyer, Langley as a piano dealer, and both would even teach Sunday school at Trinity Church, at which their family had been parishioners since 1697. Despite their notoriety, their lives seemed ordinary. That changed in 1933, the year hemorrhages in the eyes blinded Homer. In turn, Langley quit his job as a piano dealer to care for his brother. In response to why he didn't seek out a doctor to treat his brother, Langley is quoted as responding thusly, "You must remember that we are the sons of a doctor. We have a medical library of 15,000 books in the house. We decided not to call in any doctors. You see, we knew too much about medicine." But as speculated by Down the Rabbit Hole, the brothers may have been more afraid that the doctors would cut Homer's optic nerves, meaning there would be no chance for him to recover his eyesight. In addition to Homer's blindness, another aspect of the Colliers' lives changed, namely, the Great Depression. Kicked off on October 29, 1929, or Black Tuesday as it is known, the collapse of the stock market and widespread unemployment helped cause a demographic shift in Harlem, which saw the Collier brothers leaving their house even less. Yeah, it's not great. Their shut-in nature hadn't exactly begun there. The Bowery Boys podcast posits that Homer and Langley's mother had been something of a recluse herself in the years after her separation from their father, and when she had passed, the brothers had arranged for her body to be taken by the undertaker in the dead of night through a window. Langley took to caring for his brother day in and day out, only leaving the house to gather necessities and other things that caught his attention. He claimed to have created a diet for Homer that would restore his sight that consisted of black bread, peanut butter, and 100 oranges a week. He also began collecting newspapers so that his brother could catch up on the world events once his sight was restored. Even without a source of income, the Colliers still had a comfortable inheritance put aside. So it seems odd that the brothers stopped paying for gas and water, instead opting to heat the house by burning lamp oil and fetching water at a pump several blocks away. Fueled by rumors that the two had vast riches stored away within the house, the brothers faced other issues, such as break-ins and children throwing rocks at the windows. The younger brother barricaded and bolted the doors in response, and started going out only at night to gather things he needed. The two lived in isolation, connected only to the outside world by Langley's ventures, the newspapers he gathered, and a crystal radio he had apparently constructed. Their phone line had been disconnected long before, in 1917. As the years rolled by, the house fell into disrepair, and local rumors intensified about them. Some believed that the two lived in Orientalist splendor within. Sitting on a fortune they were afraid to invest in a bank. These rumors were reinforced when a news article appeared in the New York Times in 1938, repeating the claims after they had refused to sell their home to a real estate agent. By now, the Colliers' estate was in a state of disrepair on the outside, its first-floor windows and doors boarded and barricaded with few signs of life. Yet at times, those passing by could hear piano music. It was an inviting mystery, so it shouldn't be a surprise that journalists took interest in the brownstone and its mysterious inhabitants. Later, in 1938, a reporter with the World Telegram named Helen Worden Erskine managed to secure a rare interview with Langley in which he stated, "We've no telephone, and we've stopped opening our mail. You can't believe how free we feel." The next year, the Colliers' home would draw attention again, this time as Consolidate Edison workers forced their way in to retrieve the gas meters that had been unused since 1928. The workers, barred from entry, had to climb their way to the second-story windows to break in and secure the meters. All the while, Langley shouted angrily at them to leave his property. In the end, workers smashed the doors open from the inside, with a crowd forming to watch the display. This in turn led Langley to reinforce his measures to keep intruders out. In 1942, another reporter managed to catch up to Langley and secure an interview with the increasingly mysterious local figure. In the following report, Langley claimed that Homer was now suffering from rheumatism, though the two still refused to see a doctor. The reporter, one Herbert C. Lewis, had waited for Langley outside his house and had been invited to walk with him on his nightly travels. The two talked about the neighborhood and Langley's life. The younger Collier brother's life had become caring for his brother, saying that, "I cook his meals and have to cut up his meat into little cubes so he can eat it with a spoon. I have to bathe him and tend to all his wants. I used to read to him. We have all the classics in our library. I used to read Shakespeare and Dickens, but my eyes went bad and I stopped. So now we just talk and listen to the radio. I've neglected my social life badly." This would be the final interview Langley gave, as soon after the Bowery Savings Bank sent a crew to repossess the home for failure to pay the mortgage and clean the interior. Police broke the front door down, only to reveal piles of garbage that stood as tall as the officers. As they entered, Langley wordlessly handed over a check for $6,700, which would be over $101,000 in today's money. Langley then ordered everyone to leave his home. From this point on, the police would receive regular anonymous calls that someone had died within the home, and one of these calls led Langley to allow one of the responding officers inside. Entering into the decrepit house, Langley led the officer through a series of maze-like passageways cleared through the piles of newspapers, boxes, and other oddities within. It took 30 minutes to navigate the home. In his paranoia, Langley had adorned the home with multiple traps, including cans affixed to the floor to trip intruders, and piles of garbage set to collapse on any who tripped triggers that would crush and kill them. At the end of the tunnels and passageways, the officers emerged into a clearing. The tale differs based on the retelling, but one thing remains the same. There, he saw the emancipated Homer Collier, still living, but immobilized, his knees tucked to his chin by rheumatism. These calls continued for years, and police protocol became that responding officers were to knock at the door and await a reassurance from Langley that everything was fine. Then, in 1947, this routine changed. The police received yet another tip that someone had died in the house. But this time, it came with a report that a foul miasma had started to emerge from within. When the responding officer knocked this time, no one answered. Officers tried to enter, but found the first floor impossible to break into, having been filled from wall to wall. Removing the piles of possessions would take far too long. So they moved to the second floor, breaking the window and pulling out refuse from within. Navigating the traps and passageways within, the police found Homer and found his emaciated body. He had died only 10 hours prior. At first, the police believed that Langley was the one who had placed the anonymous tip, fueled by claims that someone had seen a figure sneak out the back door of the home, and began a nationwide search for him. Reports came in from all over claiming to have seen him, but these proved fruitless. After 3 days, the search focused instead on the brownstone, with suspicions rising that Langley had died somewhere within the house in the piles of refuse. Meanwhile, the house itself was proving to be unlivable. Rainwater had damaged the house to the point that a building inspector fell through the 3rd floor, and the only thing keeping it standing were the piles of items within. Workers couldn't begin in the basement or risk a collapse. So they entered through the roof and threw the Collier's possessions out into the courtyard below. Among these possessions were over 25,000 books, endless newspapers, pianos, their father's canoe, the Ford Model T, and various medical oddities that had belonged to their father. 3 weeks after Homer's death, the manhunt for Langley ended. His body was discovered under a pile of Langley's possessions that had once been a tunnel, only 10 feet away from where his brother had been found, eaten away at by rats. Langley had prepared a meal for his older brother, only to trip one of his own traps and bring the tunnel collapsing down upon him, crushing him, and leaving Homer to succumb to starvation all alone, seated mere feet away from his deceased younger brother. Condemned, the Collier brownstone was purchased by a non-profit and demolished. In its place now stands a small park named after the family. In the years since, the name Collier has become a warning for children, a sort of boogeyman that they might become if they don't clean up after themselves. The brothers have been written about through a number of articles, and have even been the subject of books, novels, and episodes of television programs. They've been viewed with contempt and disgust by some in the years since they disappeared into their home in Harlem, but I think it might be worth viewing them with a more sympathetic lens. As our understanding of mental illness and hoarding have increased over the years, let's not point and laugh at these two brothers, but instead see them as two individuals whose mental health issues led them to seclude themselves away from society, and in the end, claim their lives.
That is so heavy.
The thing about this kind of story is that, no matter how simple they may seem at first glance, there's often a rabbit hole lurking beneath that you can fall into and spend days sorting through. And often, the more you learn about it, the deeper you dig to satisfy your own curiosity.
Well, yeah, the real challenge is to find the pertinent information for a story, and then summarize it in such a way to get the point across without taking away from the overall story.
I knew I liked you.
Is he done yet? I hate when he gets into these doom and gloom episodes.
Ugh, he always gets into these macabre, meandering miseries. And that new girl ain't helping neither, opening that can of worms. Do you even remember how long it took Brew to get that out of his system last time? Cause I do. And not only is it doom and gloom, but now there's mountains of mess.
Messes are just the worst. Though, now that I think about it, it's getting a bit messy in here too. And you know, it might be time for
You're not gonna start.
spring cleaning!
All right. Well, you do you. I'm gonna go read these texts or whatever.
And don't you worry, I won't touch your kitty cat sunshine plushie. Not like that time Brew threw out all my yoga mats or that time that you burnt away my shirt. My favorite shirt. Nope, that ain't me. If you like it chill, come get into that spring cleaning vibe with me over on my channel with some lo-fi beats to tidy up to. Let's get our Marie Kondo on.